I heard yesterday the discussion, and I heard men from Britain tell me the Brits now have the second edition of a digital Britain, you know.
Yes, but they don't have provinces, which seem to be one of the major stumbling blocks. I mean, I was at that session too, and there seemed to be two ideas. One is that the national digital strategy would emerge as part of consumer behavior, and we didn't really have to do that much because this is the kind of thing that can be driven by people. And the other is that every single person has to attend a meeting about the national digital strategy and check it off on their tax return that they've done so. So, I mean, we're in like huge and everybody there and let the market decide.
Well, it's more than that, surely. But that's why I use the example of Royal Commission, because that's how we traditionally do things, to move an issue out of partisanship, put it to a respective body which has representation from all interest groups, and let them come forward with a blueprint, and then we argue on it. We argue on the substance, not on the politics, not on the originator, etc. And if you don't like a Royal Commission, as I say, national panel or something, it will do the same thing. But I think that's the way to go. And once the concept is there, the various parties will do their part to, whether they be the private sector, whether they're provincial governments or federal government, everybody has an interest in this. But we really don't have a concept. We have some very good initiatives, like the Canada 3.0, like the Forum on the Digital Economy that the Minister of Industry said, etc. But it's still hasn't come together. And people haven't realized that you can't deal with content on one hand and transport on the other hand. It's all mixed, it's intermixed, and you have to approach it holistically.
Well, maybe it's a great national project, but we haven't had any of those in quite a while. So Tom, could you get on that right away? Okay. Just to finish, I dug out a quote from you. I think you said this a couple of years ago, right at this conference. In this ever more borderless world, you said, we are going to have to carve out a special place for the Canadian broadcasting system, for Canadian points of view, Canadian ways of expressing themselves, and Canadian creativity. How would you rate so far what you've done on that front, and what do you still want to do before your mandate is finished?
Le premier point, c'est à vous, à l'audience, à le public de décider. Je ne suis pas ici pour dire que j'ai réussi, j'ai manqué, raté. Franchement, c'est comme mon poste comme président de la CRTC termine, le public va faire le jugement. Est-ce qu'on est en train? Oui. Est-ce qu'il reste des choses à faire? Beaucoup. As I said before, the main thing is to change the whole environment, this environment from protection and fostering things and nurturing and giving people special rights and privileges to one of enabling, of saying, look, we are losing our control daily. It's going to be gone one of these days. All sorts of new platforms are in. There are tremendous opportunities here. Seize them, and what can we do in a regulatory way to help you, to set the theme, to make it easier for you. But we have to get away from the idea that everybody has a protected rice bowl and it will stay there. That's just not there. And it requires a change of mindset, both for us as regulator, both for the industry, for the government, and it requires a new thinking, and we do that daily. The hearing that we just talked about, the group licensing, is exactly one of them saying, that's the new reality. We're going to have huge enterprises who are involved in distribution, in creation of content, etc. Those are our licensees. Our licensees is not a small little broadcaster in Shibugami. And if you look at it that way, you hopefully come up with a solution that fits the scene.
And the creative side, because in Michelle's presentation, we saw how absolutely dependent the creating of Canadian feature films is on the government. Yeah. And it's the same thing. We won't have many Canadian programs without regulation. Market forces, as you say, don't provide them. So do you feel a special responsibility to this group, which when they talk about market forces, this group kind of isn't in that mix?
first of all, I'm on a record of trade of supporting the producers and saying, for instance, terms of trade is something that is there and should be there, would make life easier for you and also the broadcasters, and hopefully would lead to less difficult negotiations. But more than that, obviously, the whole broadcasting system depends on the content, and where does the content come from? From the producers, you know. So whether they work independently or they work on contract for networks, it's still their ingenuity, their creativity, etc., that makes the broadcasting system that reflects Canada as it is. So this is where it all starts, as far as I'm concerned.
So when you look around the world, are the issues and trends about the same as in Canada, or are we in a different space? Platform convergence, government policies, how?
I think that we see the same trend everywhere, that as the platforms are changing, people don't know where they're going, which platform will be dominant, which one will be secondary, and you try to position yourself to basically occupy all platforms. We have two very successful models in Canada, Quebecor and Rogers, which in a different way basically own all the platforms and also a huge chunk of content. If the Shaw deal goes through, there will be another one like that. In the United States, you have Comcast, NBC, exactly the same model. In Europe, you have various, or Vivendi or Briggs, etc., who are starting to go exactly that way. They have 2 or 3 of the components, etc. I think that's the sort of transition pattern. Until you know which works, make sure you have this. It will probably mean in the long run very large enterprises controlling huge portions of the whole communication broadcasting space, etc., which of course brings you in the whole area of diversity of voices in those problems. But I see the trend everywhere being the same thing, that for the time being you will see major consolidation, etc., until this has shaken out and we really have developed new business models based on new forms of distribution.
And do you love this future?
I think it's exciting.
Yeah.
Loving is overstating it, like all. You know, there are a lot of grave dangers there, you know, and it's also everything moves at such a rapid pace, you know, that it's, we as a regulator, by definition, are always behind the curve. But, you know, here it's not one curve, we're sometimes a second behind the second curve, you know, because things have changed while we were rethinking it. And so it's certainly challenging.
So I guess that I've been talking to a number of people at this organization, people who've been around a while like me, and everyone is sure on one thing, that no president of the commission, no chair of the commission has ever faced the profound change that you have had to face in your term. And I was actually going to start out by saying, you poor lamb.
Well, you know, I chose this job. I was judge of the federal court. I had the most secure position in Canada. As a judge, you determine your timetable, you determine, you have no bother of resources, and nobody can push you in front to deliver a decision. You deliver them when you're ready, and once you do deal with it, it's done. It never comes back. It's a wonderful job. No question about it. I gave it up. Why? Because I didn't find it challenging enough. Now I got a bit more challenge than I asked for, but I'm enjoying it.
Well, we certainly want to say that you have shown incredible grace under pressure, and we want you to be our champion for a long time. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.